Hello, and welcome to the Innova Conversation. My name is Steve Waltz.
And I'm Jeff Progalski.
And today's conversation is about cloud options.
Yes, it is. Were you waiting for me to jump in there, Steve?
I was waiting for you, Jeff. So
okay, sorry, I let you down yet again. Add this to the list.
All right, hold on. My list is, I got to get a new legal pad. But anyway, as a partner, we get a lot of questions about the cloud. What is the cloud? There's fear of moving to the cloud. And so what we're going to do, this episode is really going to talk about, kind of define what the cloud is. And, what are the options? What can you put in there? So I think, Jeff, maybe the best way to get this started is really kind of talk about and define, so when you talk about the cloud, what is the cloud?
Sure. So I think the best way, the simplest definition I heard was the cloud means someone else's computer or a computer located somewhere else. So essentially, cloud computing is something as basic as Office 365. It's something as basic as Google, Netflix. All of these are solutions that are running on servers somewhere, but they're not running on anything that you own. You may use your laptop to log into Netflix or your iPad or your smart TV, but all the content and the delivery system is on a different server, and all you need to access it is the app and a valid internet connection. So that's a real basic. You can get into, guys like me like to spit the techno jargon out and get people easily confused. There are, hybrid clouds, private clouds, public clouds. All of these things are relatively unimportant in the grand scheme of things. I think to business owners, all they care about is, what does the cloud mean to me? And in most cases, we are talking about a public cloud, like Microsoft's Azure platform is a public cloud offering. It can also, and that means it's available out on the internet to anyone who has a valid account. Of course, there's privacy and security around Azure. That's absolutely a fundamental part of it, but it exists out in the public space, as opposed to maybe a private cloud where if your organization is big enough, you could have a series of servers located somewhere that, again, is out on the internet, but it's only accessible from people within your organization via some sort of VPN technology or something that creates a secure tunnel from your clients who are using it to this private cloud. And then in between those two, there is something called a hybrid cloud, which is a mix of either public, private, or it is a mix of on-premise technology and meaning servers in your server room and servers located in the cloud in someone else's network. So that's sort of at a high level what the cloud means. Did I thoroughly confuse you?
Not quite. So what I got out of that, basically, instead of having your own servers, there's servers somewhere else. Like, so Microsoft has their servers in Azure. You talked about Netflix, which is amazing to me. If you think of Netflix, is that everything that they do is in the cloud. And so you kind of, like you said, you when you request something, it's delivered to you from their servers to your subscription. Is that safe to say?
Yep. I think another part that's important that maybe I left off is that in most cloud provisioned scenarios, all the technical junk that is going on in the background, all the storage, all that, you don't care about that at all, and that all should be invisible to the client. So you want to watch a movie, you go to Netflix.com and you start browsing. You're not having to pick which server. Are you East Coast or West Coast? Are you, what sort of client device are you using? Do you have to make settings in Netflix to? If you think about it, you don't have to do any of that in Netflix, right? It just works.
Yeah, that's correct. It can be a little confusing because you hear multi-tenant, you hear like you said, the hybrid cloud, and what's interesting is you kind of hear like, so what makes a good cloud? But Jeff, the question I have for you is what makes a bad cloud?
Ooh, bad clouds make rain on your picnic. So I think in terms of what makes, you have been, I know you've had conversations with customers who have moved to a cloud platform, and then found the solution less than ideal. I think back to 7 or 8 years ago when we were doing presentations on the cloud, and everyone had concerns about security and things like, there's no way I'm ever going to put my business data in the cloud. It can't be trusted. And I think there's a real change in that space that people have, cloud adoption now is sort of what everyone is doing, unless there's some extenuating circumstances for them not to. But getting back to your question, what makes a bad cloud? There's a couple, I think 4 or 5 items that could make a cloud bad. Number one, expense. So if you don't understand how you're being billed for your cloud solutions, and in most cases what we're talking about here is infrastructure, moving your servers that used to be in your environment, whether it was a nav server, a SQL server, a domain controller. You have servers that are in your environment. You've paid for licensing for those. You've paid for hardware from Dell or CDW or HP, and now you're going to get these out, and so you're going to move them to the cloud, and it's important to understand the expense associated with that, because in the case of Azure, Microsoft's got this nice Azure calculator that helps you estimate usage, but there's a lot of variables there that can really swing those numbers dramatically one way or the other. So it's important to understand that, and getting in a cloud agreement and then signing over a 1 year, 2 year, 3 year contract, and then learning that, the performance we had to bump up the server performance specs, and because of that, our $1,200 a month subscription just went up to $2,000 a month. That's a really bad thing. And the other thing to consider, the other thing that I've found is that a lot of old cloud contracts are based on old pricing models, in the way that if you think back, Steve, the cell phone, like remember like 5 years ago, I don't even know that you could afford to purchase an all you can eat unlimited data plan, because they were $100 plus if you had a provider that would sell you that, and now it's down to, like with some of the low cost providers, down to like $40 a month, and so it's important for people to be familiar with and have a current model, at least be operating under the current pricing model for their cloud contracts. So expensive, that makes a bad cloud. Performance.
So a question I have, Jeff, for you. So it kind of gets to the model. You think of technology like 20 years ago when you bought a PC, how expensive they were. And then, like they said, every 2 years the technology would increase the speed double. And then all of a sudden the technology caught up and the price started dropping. And you look at the cost of what a laptop is. And now, like kind of the old model you're talking about, how to get you, into the cloud and usage, it seems like, is that kind of following the same type of model of like how PCs dropped in price and makes it more affordable to hop in the cloud now?
Yeah, absolutely. I would say that the trend in the marketplace is driving. So as PC adoption became more popular, it scaled, and people could, the manufacturers could now start to produce thousands of PCs at a time, and that allowed them to, to buy better from their vendors, and then, make a more efficient process in manufacturing, and that all led to lower costs. I think in the same way, cloud adoption has, got players like Microsoft involved through Azure and to take on Amazon Web Services and Rackspace. And so the whole, the increased competition, the scale of the solution, all of that is driving down the price.
That's interesting because, we get asked a lot. And I think, it's interesting. I read something about a couple of months ago. It said that, people are scared of the cloud. They said that the people over 50 were in fear of their identity and information being stolen. And that if you're under 50, it's just a matter of when. So it seems like, how that fear is subsiding more and more because a lot of the things that we do and a lot of the, you think about it, your Gmail, your Yahoo, your a lot of these accounts are basically you're signing on to a software as a service and you're giving your information to their servers that are really in the cloud. Is that correct?
Yep, absolutely. So it's the fact that everyone, it's 5 years ago when we were having conversations, I don't trust the cloud, and I'm having that conversation with a CEO who's reluctant to move, and I'm saying, okay, well, so you have your corporate email, and maybe you had that on an Exchange server, but do you have a personal email? Oh yeah, I had a Hotmail. I have a Hotmail address that I've had for 12 years. Oh, okay. Well, what kind of stuff do you do on there? Well, I have my banking tied to that one, and I have, banking, what are you doing? Well, my online banking. Oh, so the cloud is safe enough for you to do your banking on, but not for your business.
And, when I was at a Microsoft meeting about a year and a half ago in Chicago, I remember that they said that over 200,000 Azure accounts were being set up monthly. So it has to be well north of that now. So it's amazing how fast this is growing.
Yep. I was at the Microsoft Worldwide Partner Conference last summer. The rate thousands per day. It's just it's crazy. So I think and then getting back to the bad cloud stuff, the other things that make for a bad cloud are poor service and support, and that would be directly from your provider. So is it easy for you? All the things about cloud computing that are supposed to make it great, flexibility, ease of use, ease of deployment. So if you have someone that your cloud provider kind of keeps you handcuffed in that, if you want to add a user, you've got to submit a request, and then we'll get back to you within 24 hours and confirm details. And that sort of the poor support, the inflexibility that makes a cloud provider bad. Then also just the physical performance of the equipment that you're running on. If you're running NAV in the cloud, that NAV requires a pretty robust hardware to run on. So if the performance isn't, if the machines that you're running on in the cloud aren't properly configured, no different than if they weren't properly configured within your data center, that's frustrating. So poor performance leads to a bad cloud, and last but not least, reliability. So, do you have, is your cloud provider giving you some sort of financially backed service level agreement that, tells you these machines are going to be up and available for you to use 99% of the time, and if not, we are going to put some money back in your pocket for that? I think that that's the big thing that owners often have their biggest doubts about. If it's one thing to have your email in the cloud, and if you can't get email for an hour during the business day, that's bad. But if your ERP system is running in the cloud and you can't manufacture, you can't record consumption on a production order. Your people can't ship, you can't invoice, you can't collect money, your customers can't place orders. That's a whole different set of worry for a bit. So you need to make sure your cloud is reliable. So and you know what, Steve, I'm sick of talking about bad clouds. Let's talk about good clouds.
Yeah, when we look at what the cloud offers, like I think of just Office 365. So many people use it, and the ability to collaborate in the cloud, right? You have like you said, the Exchange, where you can access your emails, calendars, contacts on your desktop, your laptop, or a tablet, and SharePoint. And I tell you what, they have Microsoft Teams now, where you can kind of like instant message people, audio or video. And, I was talking I was trying to explain this to my wife, who's not a techie. It's like texting, how you can text somebody instantly. And you can, the collaboration ability that you have, especially if you have team members scattered throughout the United States, it's just amazing how it can improve your productivity.
I would agree. The other thing that I think is a huge paradigm shift is that we are experiencing with our own product, Dynamics 365 Business Central, but it's also true in terms of just basic file formats. But remember when like the hosted version of an application was like a dumbed down version of it, like sticking in the Microsoft ecosystem, like Word. So you had the Microsoft Word. If it was installed on your desktop in the Windows client, you could do everything with it. You also had available to you the web version of Word, but it was significantly limited in terms of its feature set. And so you were, kind of like, okay, this is nice, but I can't do all the fancy formatting, and there's functional areas here that are missing. Now with the cloud, there's still, like in Business Central, the latest and greatest updates are coming to the hosted version of Business Central before it's getting rolled out to the Business Central on-premise crowd. So it's sort of that reversal of the paradigm where you needed to have a rich Windows desktop client to get the full functionality. It's Microsoft has acknowledged the momentum and the cloud adoption rate, and so that's where they're putting their resources to get it out to people. The other part of that I think is fascinating to consider is like keeping files on your own network. That sort of gets you to so if you had an Excel spreadsheet that was let's call it the Q drive, Steve. So you had an Excel file on the Q drive, you opened it up, and then I needed to add something to it. You get in that whole thing where, okay, open a read-only copy, get a notification when it's back. So there's limitations. That Excel file, if it exists on a hosted SharePoint environment in the cloud, you don't have to configure all the fancy permissions. It just respects all the Office 365 security groups that you had to set up for email within your domain. And now anyone can get into that document. It kind of turns a dumb document into a smart document because it can be shared and collaborated on, just like you said.
Great points, and I think Microsoft sent the shot last year, because when they released Dynamics 365 Business Central, what was the version they released first?
Yep, it was the cloud version, right? It
was the cloud version. So that was the first time that Microsoft ever released the cloud version first, and then the on-premise version. So I think they kind of indirectly told people this is kind of where we're going. I mean, they've been telling everybody for years, look, we live in a cloud first, mobile first world, and that that's kind of the direction that we're going. But they really made that known on the last release of Business Central. So what's interesting is that it's hard to cover a topic this big in a conversation like this. So when we engage with our customers, and the questions that we hear all the time, like I'm not ready for the cloud, and we hear it all the time, and maybe it's because of fear, and some of the add-ons that we deal with aren't ready for the cloud, but everybody's investing their resources to get them to the cloud. So if you get a chance, and you happen to be on our website at Inovia.com, we have like little things on the top of our website, and there's a section that says Nav in the cloud. And when you actually hover over that, it talks about Nav, Office 365, Microsoft 365, Skype, and Dynamics 365. So it really kind of walks through a little bit, because those are those questions that we hear, Jeff, daily? We're being asked for customers, and what's cool about this stuff's all hosted up in Azure, which is the Microsoft cloud. So when you think of good cloud, that's what I think of. So
exactly. And I think that most importantly, Microsoft has resources. This is the other thing that I think makes Microsoft unique in the cloud hosting space, is that there is, Microsoft has so much content available for people who you don't need to necessarily work with a partner like Inovia to get to the cloud, because there's all these training resources available for free for your own people that have the tools of Azure migration. I mean, like they've not only do they have this robust cloud platform, but they've also invested money in developing tool sets for people just to move to it. So it's not like a question of they've been including it in the server operating systems, the building blocks of a cloud migration since Server 2012. Now here we are 7 years down the road, and we're able to take advantage of that technology. So that's important. Also important to consider the Microsoft. I know Steve, maybe I don't know if you've been able to work on any of these with our customers, but Microsoft has what they call a cloud consult, that they work with a partner like Inovia and an end user that's looking to go to Azure. Absolutely, that is something that if you're interested in, you should reach out to us, because putting you in touch with Microsoft directly, they give you they put you in touch with their own Azure engineers that will do a proof of concept with you, that will help answer the nitty-gritty technical detail questions about, how do I create a point-to-point VPN and use on Azure? This is the brand of my firewall, and they'll, they have all these great resources that are available to help you get there. They make it really easy to be able to take advantage of all that. So that would be something else that I think is important for people to take from this conversation.
Well, great. And Jeff, you did a webinar yesterday for our customers, right? What was that webinar?
That was you picked the wrong cloud, now what? So this is all fresh in my mind.
Well, that's great to hear, because some of the calls that we get were people aren't happy or had a bad experience, and I think Jeff addresses that. And so where you can find that in a lot of our webinars is if you go onto our website at Inovia.com, there's events. It'll show the upcoming webinars that we have. And then we also have the past events you can kind of see, which would be Jeff's webinar that he just talked about. Also, if you get a chance, we are on LinkedIn. And we are on Twitter, and we kind of post our events. And I think the next event that we have coming up here is our annual Inovia Customer Conference, which is April 24th and 25th in Wisconsin Dells. And I think, Jeff, you're actually doing a presentation or two. And so if you get a chance and you want to talk to either Jeff or I more about the cloud, please seek us out. And to our customers, your account managers are there to help you if you have questions about the cloud or, where you're at and you're thinking about it. And Jeff, I really appreciate you getting in detail and kind of going over the cloud, and it's a continual conversation. So I appreciate it. And Jeff, any last thoughts that you want to talk about before we sign off here?
Nope, I've talked way too much already.
Oh, Jeff, that's not possible. So, all right, everybody, we appreciate you signing on for this episode of the Inovia Conversation. Looking forward to talking to you soon. So take care and enjoy the rest of your day.
All right, thanks, everyone.
Thank you.